In this fourth video of the beginner's course for Amazon Sumerian, we're going to look at the environment. That is, how do you change the sky sphere in the background and all of those sorts of different properties. So in this video, we will be covering background, the skybox, and the sky sphere. So let's get started. All right, I'm returning to the scene that we are continuing to work on in this video course. And so far we have a table that is set or nested inside a table offset. And the ground. Both have this gray color that we added in the last video or changed in the last video. But we want to look at how to change this background. I will note that in this video, I do want to return to what we have right here, but I just want to show you real quickly how this works. So if we want to change the sky sphere or the background, there's a few different ways to do that. First, I need to get into the environment component, and that is if you select the beginner's course or our top level tab, scene level tab, or not tab, I'm sorry, the scene level entity, then we go over the inspector panel, we'll find environment. Now there are two properties we're going to look at, background and skybox. All right, so right now we have a blue sky sphere. Skyboxes and sky spheres are lumped together. They do operate a little bit different. We'll see how that works. And right now we're just going to select let's actually just remove it. We remove it, and what do we get? A gray background. Lots of gray going on here. Now, if I want to change that background color, essentially the background is the farthest property that's out there. It's it's not an entity necessarily, but it is the farthest thing in your scene. And a skybox will be, a little bit closer. So if you change the background color and you have a skybox or sky sphere, you won't notice the difference of the sky or the background, because the background is the farthest away that you can get from the center of your scene. So if we click on the color picker, we can change that color, that background, and notice that these entities we already have, the table and the ground, start reflecting the color a little bit. So if I have the background set to a red, it is reflecting because we have some material settings set to reflect slightly. You do get that color. So that is how you change the background color. And you can select it to whatever you want. Boy, that's a lot of green. Okay. But we don't want to keep it like that. We want to look at a skybox. Now, to get a skybox or a sky sphere, there are a few different things you can do. For number one, you can add in your own 360-degree image for a sky sphere. But let's just start first by clicking on the plus button over here. And this will add a new skybox. And then we're going to edit that skybox by clicking the pencil icon. Now, we don't have any textures added quite yet, so let's do that by clicking the textures drop-down. Now, what is a skybox? A skybox is a way of adding a background that is a box that surrounds your scene on 6 different sides. Now, it's infinitely far away, so you're not going to run into it at any point. You can't zoom out far enough where you're going to zoom in or zoom out far enough where you're going to run into the edge of the skybox. So it is infinitely large, but it actually does have corners and seams. So let's see how this works. If you remember in the last video, I used that cardboard texture and to add to the table. We're going to use that same image. You can use any image you want here. So go ahead and select anything you have on your computer. You can take a screenshot of this and add those images to the texture drop inputs. But I will be using this cardboard texture. So I'm just going to drag that, and I do have to add it to all 6 sides. And as I do that, you start seeing my skybox being completed. Now the cool thing about this is now we can really see where the edges are in our scene. So because it is a box, there is an edge, and it comes to a corner up here and a corner over there and a corner down below. That actually is not below. That's actually reflecting up here. So you're not seeing through it. You're just seeing reflected up on top. So that's how a skybox works. It is an infinitely large box around your scene. However, you can also use 360-degree images if you want to use a sky sphere. Now, there are a few options we have right now. Let's go ahead and click the Edit button over here under Skybox. And under Shape, we're going to change it to Sphere. And this will allow us to add just one texture or one image that is a 360-degree image. If I go over here to my Assets panel, you'll see my sky sphere blue. I can drop the texture there, and we return back to what it was, just that blue sky background. Not background, blue sky sphere. But let's experiment a little bit. Let's click the Import Assets button. This is our first time using the asset library. So the Import Assets button above the canvas opens your asset library. What we're looking for is this sky sphere pack. So I'm going to click that and add. Now the cool thing about this, and even says your pack imported, this is the first time we've imported anything. That's why this is popping up. I'll click OK. This sky sphere pack has a bunch of different images that we just provide available to you just to experiment around. You can use them if you want also, and you get a preview of what it is over here in the inspector panel. So let's look for something interesting. Maybe a lake. Sure, that works. All right, so I'm going to use this. Where is it? This Blake Bench Clear Midday. Now I need to get back to my sky box or sky sphere. So there we go. That's the one I wanted. Now I'm just going to drag that. I found that image over here in the assets panel. I'm going to drag it over here onto my texture drop input. And there we go. We get this image, this lake image, this 360-degree image that is now added to our scene. And it is looking like it is in our backgrounds. We're kind of in the middle of that. However, there's one other trick that I do want to show you that you can do. Let's go ahead and remove this texture. There is something else you can do to add a sky sphere skybox. It's not necessarily hacky, and there are actually ways in which this could be useful. But let's just run through this real quick. I'm going to create an entity, and I'm just going to choose a sphere, and this adds a sphere to the center. I'm going to change the sphere to, let's do 100. But I actually want to do it -100, because I want it to appear from the inside. So if I select my sphere, you see it's really just surrounding my ground right there perfectly, but I can see through it, but I can't see out of it. That's why I want it to be negative. Now, just like I added a texture to my box or my table to make it look like it is a cardboard box, I can add a 360-degree image to a sphere that will wrap itself around the sphere to appear to be a sky sphere. So I'm just going to pick some random 360-degree image. And once it loads, there we go. We do need to rotate let's rotate it this way. It's 90 degrees. There we go. So there's another way that you can add your own sky sphere. And you could add multiple sky spheres, then you could hide them and move them around if you want. So there's other ways in which you can do background. So, and then if I zoom out, you'll see that is still in the middle of our scene, and I still have a background color outside of that. So again, that's another way to do it, and there would be situations in which this is a helpful thing to do. However, I don't want to actually keep any of this that I just did. I want to return it to the way it was. And so let us first delete this sphere. We don't want that. And the background color, we'll just delete that. And it looks like we have it back to the way we want. I'm just going to make sure I add my blue sky sphere as my texture. And now we are back to the way it was in the beginning. In the next video, we're going to look at lighting and adding lights and the different light types. So I hope you join us. Thanks.